Look, I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I know I have not uploaded content as frequently as I could be. Part of that is due to me adjusting to my first semester of college, but I also have been dropping the ball myself, which is something I want to try and avoid this year. Since starting college, however, my interests have shifted towards film criticism and such, rather than the usual edited gaming sessions. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have video games I want to make videos on.
I know how to do the twerk. Caleb, pull out your knife. Okay, and then just spam W into a corner.
There will be a general shift of my content going forward. To start off this new change of direction, I wanted to share my video essay that I submitted as my final for Intro to Film Analysis. I figured that I might as well knock out two birds with one stone by uploading a video that I already finished creating. So with that out of the way, here is why BlacKkKlansman is an amazing film that I highly recommend. For those who haven't seen the movie before, BlacKkKlansman is a drama based on true events involving a black police officer infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan during the late 70s. Within the retelling, our main character, Ron Stallworth, becomes the first ever black police officer in Colorado Springs. Even as a rookie, his reckless ambition to tackle larger assignments results him in coming in contact with the KKK willingly, leading him to accidentally use his real name over the phone. With fellow officer Flip Zimmerman acting as his body double, they begin to uncover a white supremacist conspiracy that they need to prevent from acting out, all while Ron struggles to decide whether his loyalty should lie with the police department or with the black community. His first task as an undercover cop was to infiltrate former Black Panther Kwame Ture's speech under the chief's direction to prevent any incitement of violence. His love interest, Patrice, is the president of the Colorado Springs Black Student Union and is in favor of Kwame Ture's call to action of starting a race war against the whites. Unlike Ron, she has complete distrust of the police department and believes that all cops, no matter what, are racist. This ideology, of course, puts Ron in a tough spot between wanting to fulfill his dream of working as a cop and proving to Patrice that he's willing to do what it takes for the benefit of the black community. By emphasizing his conflicting views, Spike Lee provides the audience a story that doesn't just take one side, but instead shows the harm in multiple forms of extremist beliefs. While obviously the KKK is still portrayed as the ignorant scum that they are, Kwame Ture's encouragement of armed warfare against white people is not taken lightly either. Ron must help Patrice realize that not all cops are bad, just as not all black people are criminals. It's clear that the general message is that being prejudicial against people in any context is not good for the sake of our society. With all that being said, there is still a concerning amount of people who did not come to this conclusion. Let's take a look at how others may have perceived this movie. For the sake of preventing harassment towards these individuals, I have blurred the names of these reviewers. This movie's sole purpose and intention is to create more hate and resentment against white people. It has the opposite effect. Instead of bringing people together, it separates them. Absolute disgrace. Now, I personally don't see how anyone could think this movie creates hatred for white people when part of the plot revolves around the main character wanting to prevent a race war against the whites. The only white people seen as antagonistic towards Ron are the Klan members, obviously, the two cops who almost arrest Ron, and the racist cop that gets arrested at the end. Even his chief, who was sometimes a hard ass, wasn't presented as a hateable person as much as he was just a man running the department on a leash. It's important to understand why a character is hated for narrative reasons instead of concluding that their skin color is the main issue. I thought the end of the movie jumping to Trump was totally out of context and uncalled for. Then, showing the American flag upside down? This was just a BLM movie. I admit that the footage towards the end did catch me off guard and felt as though the movie would be completely fine on its own without it, but I understand Lee's reasoning for including it. The events the movie was based on happened in the 70s, but that doesn't mean the ongoing fight for racial equality is over. Anti-Semitism and racism are still problems within the modern day, and that is what Spike Lee wanted to remind his audience of. Trump's condemnation of all violence and racism while ignoring the central issue at fault enables other white supremacists into continuing their terroristic behavior. Even the slogan Trump famously threw around, "Make America Great Again," has undertones of racism embedded into its meaning. A black musician, Daryl Davis, who has come into close contact with Klan members, has brought attention to how racists interpret that phrase. The word "again" in the slogan points to America being great at some point in its history, but leaving it up to interpretation of what made it so great exactly can be dangerous. To a white supremacist, they could think America was at its greatest when minorities didn't have the same rights as them. Trump may have had good intentions in mind, but his words should have been selected more carefully, for his rhetoric may be more dangerous than he thinks. More race baiting to divide us. I don't think they even use this term correctly. As I've stated before, this movie doesn't divide the sides, but instead shows some parallels and nuance to an ongoing discussion. Lee was not obligated to put a prominent black speaker under criticism, and yet he did. It often feels like certain people only get from a movie what they already wanted to hear instead of analyzing what is actually being said. Which brings me to my final point. By producing media that encourages critical thinking over divisive topics, less people will hold on to extremist ideologies that don't leave room for nuance. Of course, there will still be those who produce biased slop that negatively influences the perception of minorities for the sake of internet clout, but our society needs more movies that can potentially show the world in a new light rather than reaffirming any harmful bias. The way Lee handles Ron Stallworth's story using community as a motif is simply remarkable. Ron's desire to be seen as part of the black community but willing to stick to the police force contrasts Connie's desire to be closer to her husband's white supremacist community even if it means she has to murder. Ron also alludes to comparing the police to the KKK because Flip explains that they allow a racist cop among them because he's seen as family. In the end, a longing for community has the potential for dangerous things to spur from it. Spike Lee has made a phenomenal film that brings to casual audiences a perspective that shows racial injustice as more than a black and white issue. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you sticking around. As I've stated in the beginning, I am trying to shift my content into criticism, which I hope you will all enjoy as I continue to pursue a degree in media studies. Be sure to follow my social media on Instagram, TikTok, and X, where you can feel free to let me know what you want me to review for future videos as well. Thank you, and see y'all in the next one. If you made it to the end of holy fuck. If you oh my god. As I've stated in the beginning, I am trying to pursue. As I've stated in the